All right. That's Billy's new album. That's a little bit different than Doc Watson, isn't it? I was just tripping out because,
Not
like,
because like
uh,
uh
Grasshopper.
grasshopper.
I mean,
I mean,
obviously,
I
like, we all have kind of an affinity with Grasshopper uh, uh, in the bluegrass world. But I didn't know that he had like those videos are cool. Like he's like Grasshopper everywhere. Like I don't know if y'all have seen like all the the title screens. Grasshopper. Like that's a very powerful medicine. But I didn't know that Billy was connecting with like it on that level. He's got grasshopper. He's got dragonfly. These are big teachers. This is old ancient medicine. Yeah. Billy Strings, right there. Bang. I was just talking about you, bro. There he is. What's up, Billy?
Hey,
Welcome.
how's it
How are
going?
you? Oh man, it's going great. I was just watching through the playlist of the Home album. And so, welcome, by the way. And for those that don't know, I put this in a little email. Your new album, Home, just received a Grammy nomination, which is fantastic. So, yay! That's freaking so exciting.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, you're so welcome. And what I was just really appreciating in the videos, I really like that the animation is that the grasshopper is featured prominently.
hmm
Is that something that you wanted in those videos, or is that something that the visual artist was coming up with?
Um, yeah, I think there's like on the album cover, there's certain little things that have to do with like the lyrics of the song, and the artist who made the album cover put that stuff in there. Um, and then whoever made the videos and stuff, I think, put that in there a bunch.
Yeah, grasshopper is like big, 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 big medicine for me. And there was like the part where like the grasshopper's like in the boat and like the crown is coming down on his head. I was like, whoa! I had not seen that video before. It's
Yeah, man.
freaking super tapped in. Like we could have a conversation about that. I'd love to talk about that sometime. But we're here to talk about Doc Watson. Hello, David, cousin David. Welcome. How are you?
Good to see you all.
Good to see you too, man. How are you?
Doing all right.
Awesome. Well, I don't
Have
know how long.
been into Doc Watson, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how long Billy's got, so we're just gonna talk as much as we can in the beginning, if that's okay, and then we'll get to the pick in about 6:30 or so. Really appreciate you joining us, Billy. It's very nice. Here comes Millie. She's in here. Very good. And we don't have Kimberly, but she'll be here before long. We got almost everybody. Cool. So welcome everybody, and yeah. So like the main question I was
was
wanting to
wanting
ask
to ask.
is what made you gravitate towards Doc Watson, which is very unusual for a young person to do, rather than kind of do what everybody else is doing, which is kind of most everybody else is doing, which is gravitating towards Tony Rice's style. Was that kind of a conscious decision, or like how did that play out for you early in your development?
Um, I didn't really know who Tony Rice was when I was younger. I mean, I'm sure like we had the Bluegrass album band record, and we listened to that sometimes, but I wasn't really hip to like how great Tony was, and until later on when I kind of started, uh, when I was like a 13 or something, and I started, messing around on YouTube and finding those videos from Merle Fest and stuff, and really got into Tony's stuff. But from the time I was born, to now, still, my dad has always listened to, Doc Watson, and he knows. My dad knows the deep cuts. He can just play all those songs. He has all the records, and um, when I was a kid, Doc was just my hero. It was like my dad was always playing tunes like Beaumont Rag and Black Mountain Rag and Sheep's in the Meadow and Dig a Little Deeper in the Well and Cocaine Blues and all these songs that, you know, uh, some of them that are more popular Doc stuff, but like I said, a lot of deep cuts too, and stuff that you don't really hear all the time, Alberta and songs like that. So I was just exposed to that music when I was little. Like I remember we had a VHS, uh, a concert of Doc and Merle and T. Michael Coleman that we would watch all the time, and it's just so good. I mean, like And when I was first learning how to play, Beaumont Rag and Salt Creek and stuff like that were really the first tunes that I was learning. And back then I only played rhythm. My dad would play all the lead, and I was 5, 6, 7 years old, and he taught me G, C, and D, and gave me a capo, and I
Mhm.
figured out that I could kind of play a whole bunch of bluegrass songs with just that.
Yeah, isn't that great? It's like when
Yeah,
that light bulb goes off, it's like, whoa, I'm pretty much good for the rest of my life and maybe several after that. That's
yeah.
awesome.
But I think my dad, I'm biased, but he's just so great at the Doc Watson stuff. He's got the picking and he's got the sound and the feel, um, and so I was really lucky to be kind of exposed to that. I mean, we listened to Flat Scruggs, Bill Monroe, Larry Sparks, Jimmy Martin, stuff like that. But for the most part, it was mostly Doc Watson music that we were really getting down on. And yeah, he's just awesome at it. So when I was little, and still, I mean, my dad's my hero. And so when I was little, like if he wore Levi's, I wore Levi's, and if he wore a ball cap, I wore a ball cap. And he played guitar, and there would be these parties where everybody kind of comes over and has a few beers, and my dad would be playing music all night, and just I could I kind of noticed like how much joy he was bringing to people, and I'm like, wow, my dad's like really like popular and cool with this like party crowd, and everybody loves when he sings, and it's just like my dad is awesome. Like I want to be like my dad when I grow up. I want to be a bluegrass player.
That is a beautiful thing. That just what you said there. That's to me, just that's healing. It's a healing thing. It can be a subtle thing, but bringing joy, uplifting people. This is like that's a big deal there. And the melodies, coming from traditional music, that's a big distinction between like where kind of the melody kind of stopped and Tony just kind of kept going. Like Tony was just like his blues was just like so strong that then the kind of melody became less important. Although Tony can play the melody like as good as anybody ever could, whenever he would want to. But to me, one of the most beautiful things about Doc is that it's pretty much all melody. I mean, he's got his licks in there, but somehow it's like Monroe. It's like Monroe is like playing little licks in here, but it's all melody.
Yeah, yeah, the melody's never lost. A good example of that, and kind of how I learned. I've always learned by ear. I've never like I don't know how to read tabs. I don't know how to read music, and I really a lot of times I don't even know like if I got a capo on or something. Like sometimes I don't even know really what chord I'm playing in. It's like a C position.
Oh
But
yeah.
early on, I remember one very distinct memory that I have that I'll never forget, and it really still drives me to this day. I was My dad was teaching me Beaumont Rag, and so he's got a really good like grasp of the how to make two guitars sound really big,
Yeah.
and and I realized that even when I was little, like when he would capo up and we'd play "Don't Let Your Deal Go Down" or something like that, I never would have a capo. Like if we're playing an A, I'd play this chord,
Well, that
and he
guitar sounds great.
yeah, and he would be capoed up, and that makes the guitars sound so cool because they're in two different sort of registers, but we're playing the same chord. Like I can handle the low stuff while he's picking up high and stuff, and it makes it this big full sound, which I think is a big part of the Doc and Merle sound. Um,
Absolutely.
but like this particular instance, when I was learning Beaumont Rag, I was trying to, it would be like I would be like, okay, we're on D, 1, 2, 3, 4, A, 2, 3, 4, D. And I was trying to count like that. And I kept messing up the B part. I screwed it up every time. And we were right in the middle of a song and I just got frustrated. And I was like, Dad, just stop. Just, just stop. And I mean, I go, why don't you just play and just let me listen, you know? And so he played Beaumont Rag. And so instead of just going, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that, I started listening to what he was doing. You know, he's going da 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 diddle diddle dang da 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 da, and I got that in my head, and I'm like, okay, let me try it again, and I nailed it.
Wow.
And because I stopped and listened to what he was doing, not just try to like, okay, I hold this G chord for this many times, and then I go to the next chord. I listened to the melody, and after I did that, I just went to the right chord really without even thinking about it,
That's
um,
powerful.
because I was focusing on what he was doing, and he was so proud. He just like busted up laughing, and he reached over and squeezed my little hand with my pick in it, and he was just so proud. He called my grandmother and made her listen on the phone. Listen to this kid.
Yeah, what a great moment.
Yeah, and I'll never forget that. I mean, that really, he was super proud of me in that moment, and it was like I was proud of myself, and that just that moment alone was like, okay, this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life. This is me.
And that came from you having the sense to listen, to be like, I'm gonna stop just making noise and I'm gonna listen.
Yeah, yeah. I was just trying to count and it wasn't working, and I just go, man, why don't you just play it and I'll just listen. And I started hearing, what he was doing. And
Getting the
you know,
phrasing, all that.
yeah.
Yeah, and to me, there was another profound thing about what you just did there is you went digga digga da da digga digga da la ba da ba da diddle doo ba, and you were able to onomatopoeia the the melody,
Mhm.
and for a natural musician like yourself, or I came by that natural too. That's just like you don't even think about that being a skill. But to me, that's the essence of knowing something. Can you go like this? Digga digga da digga digga da digga da, then you really know it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's how I learned it. It was like I had to get that in my ear first, and then I was able to play the rhythm. So, I mean, for years I just played rhythm, and my dad would play all the lead, and I think that really helped me out as well, because just hearing all those songs, a lot of them are familiar with each other. A lot of 1-4-5 bluegrass stuff, and there's lead and tenor. Like
A lot of them
I
live on the same street, don't they?
Yeah, yeah, and I started like when I was little, I used to think I was like psychic or something. Like
Well, it might
you
be.
know, you know, like we would be playing a song, and I would be like a song I've never even played before or something, and I just go, oh, I think it's gonna be this chord, and then it would be,
And that's
and
like, yes, it's such a good feeling.
yes, how did I know that? And then like I thought I was so amazing, but what really was happening is, if we're gonna go, we're in A, and my dad would play a little seventh, and then we'd go to the C, and I was hearing that seventh chord, and that's how I knew to go to the C, but I didn't really know, I couldn't really make that out. I didn't know why. I just like I thought I was like psychic or something. So
Well, there's part of it too, playing with people and getting to where you can predict where they go before they even know that they're going there. Those leading tones, all that kind of stuff,
yeah.
is a right magical experience. One of the I'd never I never studied Doc Watson, before this week. I listened to quite a. That's not true. I studied a little bit deep river blues, finger picking style, but I never studied his flat picking because I was always into David, and like my dad, and like and my dad was into Doc Watson, so I got a lot of it like secondhand. But I never studied his recordings. And doggone, I was trying to like play like Doc Watson this week, and the thing that was the most humbling was just realizing that and I have a good excuse for it. I can come up with a nice excuse for why I can't play like Doc Watson. I'll tell you that in about 10 seconds, which is that he plays super clean all the time,
Yeah.
and you do too. And so I'm thinking like, well, why can't I play that clean? I'm thinking like, well, he probably didn't use this big thick tortoiseshell pick like I'm using. He probably used a floppy pick that made the pick go across the strings pretty good like that. And so that's kind of what I'm holding on to, so I don't cry too badly at night at this point. But I just love the clarity with it. It was just so amazing to realize it's like, I'm the type of person that's just like, I think I can do a lot of stuff until I try to do it. And then I'm like, oh, right. There's a reason that he's Doc Watson. And, but I think that you have that same attention to detail when it comes to the clarity, like every note just like ringing out super clean. I love that.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that, really came about. when I was little, my dad would play. He would anchor his pinky like this,
Hmm.
and that's what I do. I mean, like, and so when I was watching my dad when I was little, I would see these three fingers kind of hanging loose, and I like when I was little, I just would look at his hand, and then I'd look at mine, and I'd just try to make mine look like his. You know?
It's so funny. Like I learned I learned like a lot of guitar from watching David, and like back in the day, like he would do that sometimes when he was cross picking. You know, he'd have that down there. But then like somebody like maybe it was Don Reno. Who was it, David, that said you need to stop that doing that. And so like when we got into the guitar workshop, like this one, I'd be like, yeah, I anchor my fingers sometimes, and David's like, don't do that. I was like, but I learned that from you.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm gonna try to unmute David here. Hold on a second. David, I can't hear you. I'm trying to unmute you, buddy. Cousin.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, Don Reno, it wasn't like he was telling me I shouldn't because he drug his fingers on the top of his guitar a little bit. He just said if I really want to learn to play really blazing fast while in keeping it clean, if I don't touch the guitar, I'd be able to play faster and cleaner.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
and a lot of
good. Right.
people do. A lot of people do that. I mean, I think it just whatever works for you is my.
There it is.
That's always been my sort of thought process behind it. Is like, if you want to play with the closed hand and it feels better for you, just then go with that. There's so many amazing players like David Greer plays with that kind of hand. Molly Tuttle plays like that. Um, you know, and then there's folks that have these fingers kind of hanging down, and I always pretty much got my pinky kind of down here by my bridge somewhere. And what that does for me is it gives me a reference point of like how far away the strings are or something like that. I feel like if I'm just floating, then I wouldn't be able to be as precise. But for some people, it might be the exact opposite.
What do you feel like separates Doc's style from other great traditional stylists like maybe Norman Blake, or just what do you feel like are a couple characteristics that make Doc Doc?
I feel like he never put in any more or less than is necessary.
Ooh, I gotta give thumbs up on that one. Yeah, that's hard to do because like jeepers, it's like Temptation Island out there with all those licks that we know.
Yeah, you just want to, it's your turn to take a little solo and you just want to really nail it and play some crazy stuff. But I mean, the more I hang out with people like David Grisman and I mean, specifically David Grisman, and specifically David Grisman in his older age, he just plays like the cool stuff and that's it. He could play four notes where I would put 10, but his four notes are so much cooler. They're
That's
just like,
that's the wisdom.
yeah, it's experience and some kind of humble energy there that, I don't think Doc ever really was trying to be too flashy or anything. He was just trying to pick the tune. Um, at least that's how I hear it, when he played a tune like Black Mountain Rag or something. And you got to think of where he learned those tunes, from Gaither and
Who's Gaither? We haven't talked about Gaither. I'm not even sure I know.
Gaither is his father-in-law, Rosalie's dad.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah, Gaither Carlton. He taught Doc a lot of those old fiddle tunes and stuff. Real old-timey, scratchy fiddle player.
dig
And
it.
and they would do amazing hymns and stuff. Am I Born to Die and really great stuff like that. But they would do like Muddy Roads and tunes like that, like and
Oh, your guitar sounds so good.
they just play the melody, and I just feel like when Doc came around, I mean, uh, he was doing that rockabilly thing for a bit, but he started really playing those fiddle tunes on the guitar, and he's like, well, shoot, if I can play the same notes as the fiddle, and he just kind of started doing that.
One thing we didn't talk about, and I don't really know Doc's history well, but I'm glad you're here. You could tell us is that my impression was that he was playing a lot of like electric guitar. Was it Telecaster for like dances and stuff? You know,
He had a Les Paul.
a Les Paul. Wow, cool. So he's flat picking like fiddle tunes on electric guitar for like dances and stuff. This is like the what, the mid '50s or something like that.
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, he playing at square dances and stuff. And I think he grew up, playing Tom Dooley and all these old songs with his family and his neighbors and friends on the front porch. And I feel like maybe at that time when he was doing the rockabilly thing that he thought it was like sort of lame or something, or it was just like what he did with his family, or it's like I'm never gonna really make it playing this old kind of corny hillbilly music.
Hmm.
Uh, but and then Ralph Rensler came along, from New York City looking for Tom Ashley, uh, and he found Doc, and the kind of legend goes that they were riding in the back of a pickup truck. Ralph Rensler came all the way to North Carolina looking for this guy, Clarence Ashley, who he had a little record of, and he was trying to find this authentic Appalachian music. And so he went all the way there looking for this guy, Clarence Ashley, and he kind of tracked him down. But on the way up there one day or something, he and Doc were riding in the back of a pickup truck, and he said, Doc said, "Hand me that banjo," and he started playing Tom Dooley on it. And Ralph Rensler's like, "Oh my gosh, this is the guy." So I think Ralph convinced Doc to get a Martin and start playing this stuff. And it's like, no, dude, there's a whole school of folks back in New York that would kill to hear you play this stuff. And
Yeah.
he's like, really?
Wow, what a serendipitous thing. This guy Ralph Rensler, just did so much for. He's the guy that kind of resurrected Bill Monroe's career, and I'll, just one more cool thing about Doc Watson. Doc Watson, he was sightless, and he had third eyesight and heart sight and all this kind of stuff. But he's the kind of cat that was like, I'm gonna go ahead and rewire all the electricity in my house.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Build he could build cupboard. I mean, they built that house, he put the shingles on it and everything,
I did not know that. It's just a
Um,
bit unstoppable.
yeah, yeah, totally. And he was blind, but it doesn't really seem like it ever bothered him. He talked about he almost had like a echolocation, kind of like a bat. He could walk down the center of one of those old dirt roads without a cane and stay right to the middle because he could hear the grass on either side.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I mean, he did all the same stuff that the other kids did. He'd get in fights and smoke cigarettes and play hide and go seek and everything. Uh, a story that I really like is that I think Doc's first instrument was a harmonica
Hmm.
that he got from his dad, his name was Colonel Watson.
Hmm.
Um, and so he took this harmonica and he gave it to Doc and he said, here's the scale. Some of the notes you push, some of them you pull, and have fun with it. So Doc went down to the barn and he had this copper wire and he tied it to either side of the barn door and pulled the barn door tight. So then he had this copper wire that he could pluck on and drone, and he would play that harmonica along with it.
Oh wow.
And then, later came the banjo, which is another amazing story because um, his dad played the banjo and stuff, and Doc's grandmother's cat was really sick and blind, and he couldn't eat, and Colonel said, "Boys, if you go up there and put Grandma's cat out of its misery, I'll show you how to make a banjo head."
Oh my gosh. That's
So they did.
morbid.
They
I guess it was maybe a kind thing to do. I don't know.
Yeah, they killed the cat and brought it back, and then they made a banjo head out of it, and he made Doc a banjo.
Oh, okay, I get it now. Wow. Okay, wow. That's country right there. That's country as corn.
He
My
said
goodness.
that thing was paper thin; you could just about see through it.
Wow. This is to talk about doesn't get we had James Stiltner last week and he's mining coal and talk about earthy. It doesn't get no more earthy than that. I don't reckon.
No,
I don't know how much time you got to spend, but we'd love to. Would you have another maybe a little bit to just kind of maybe point out a couple things, maybe point out some of the tricks of the old Black Mountain Rag and Beaumont Rag?
yeah, I got all the, I'm totally free. I got nothing going on, so.
You're so generous. Thank you, brother. It's
Um,
exciting.
I guess right at the beginning of Black Mountain Rag. I got my capo on the second fret here. I like to play it in D. Um, I mean, I guess the first thing that I usually do is I start on this. If you hit this sixth fret on the B string, it's that terrible sound.
Hmm.
But if you slide that in, that's my first note. That's another thing.
Can we talk about that? I could not figure out what in the world is going. You're getting a harmonic chime on there. I could not figure out what it was.
Um, I'm trying to remember what T. Michaels. He told me what Doc used to call that. I can't remember. He had a nickname
The
for
term.
it.
That's such a cool sound.
What I'm doing is I'm kind of turning my pick sideways a little bit,
Okay.
and then when
They
I
do
hit
that in metal, like Pantera Dimebag would do that. What's that called?
like pinch harmonics,
Pinch harmonics. There we go. Cool.
and it's sort of the same thing. Like when I'm hitting those strings, a little bit of the flesh on my thumb is actually touching the strings and making that chime. And if you think about how a fiddle player would play this, sometimes they pluck the string and then play the next note, ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, I love that.
But that's just such a cool thing about Doc is like you can just hear, even though he's playing it on guitar, it sounds like fiddle. I mean, that's totally what the fiddle is like.
So you're saying that the pick goes, and then you're the flesh of your thumb, or the flesh first, then the pick.
It's kind of like the same time.
That is such a cool sound. There you go. This is that's the official deal right there. I was just like, oh, it could be this, could be this. Not really sure. We'll just wait to see. Just ask Billy about it. That's
I
great.
wish I could remember what he called those. Like, I don't know. There was a nickname for it. I can't remember. But
Husker
anyway,
dudes or
yeah,
something.
this tune, I usually, I mean, I slide, and then that's an open first string. So there's a lot of that open string in there. A lot of that. And
Now,
that's
you,
like something that happens just so much in bluegrass guitar is utilizing the open strings.
bouncing off that open thing. Now I'm just looking at your right hand, and your right hand looks a lot different than some people's, but also your tone looks and sounds a lot different than a lot of people's. You get a big fat tone. Does a lot of that come from playing over the sound hole like that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, the closer you get to the bridge, the more trebly it gets and thin. I usually try to stay within this kind of region, unless sometimes I'll go up here if I'm trying to get like some big bass tone. But yeah, I mean, I usually try to pick around like this side of the sound hole, just kind of this area is where my pick is usually kind of when I'm rocking my pick. Usually, if I'm just playing sort of normal volume, normal tone. But just depending on what I'm trying to do, sometimes I'll even play up here if I want it to be warmer and deeper sounding.
Now, like once again, like the astonishing thing about your picking is how freaking clean it is. Like, and I know that's that's an ideal, and that's an aesthetic, and like for myself, like I've never been super good at playing clean, so I just kind of call it my style. So, but now, what is like, what do you feel like are some secrets, or some of the things that helped you refine your cleanliness while retaining volume and drive and intensity and speed and all that? Because that's just a perennial question for the aspiring guitarist.
Well, I think the cleaner you can make it sound, just like it's hard, but I mean, I just think it comes from picking up a guitar and since I was 4 years old. I've just been doing it for a long time. But like, uh, to think about it, just like, you know, it's hard not to accidentally mute the string with another finger or something like that. Just trying to,
Real hard.
uh, um, Bill Monroe said something really good. It's like you got to work with this hand and you got to work, with your right hand and your left hand. You got to think right in the middle of them. You got to think right between them. So it's like, it's really just, to me, it's about making sure that your left hand is hitting the frets at the same time your pick is, and um, trying to keep those together. And you can't think too much about your left hand because then your right hand will slow down. And if you think too much about this, you'll mess this up. So it's really just about trying to tie it all into one kind of circular thing.
Were you big on scales, or were you more on big on picking tunes?
Picking tunes. I never really practiced scales very much and stuff like that. But there's so many scales in those tunes, especially the major scale in a lot of bluegrass songs. Um, you know, like I'd learn tunes like that, and then I'd realize, oh, I do know the major scale. That's just that section of Big Sandy or whatever. Like, but yeah, I think I would learn. The more fiddle tunes I learned, the more that the scale would kind of show itself to me subliminally.
That's a good way to put it.
um, I wouldn't necessarily know exactly what I'm doing, but I know the positions and the shapes, and you know, I've just been
Very
kind of like,
very traditional like way to go about it. It's like you learn, the most common 10, 12 tunes, and by the time you do that, like you know how to play. But like
yeah,
some people, yeah.
like if you learn like Billy in the Low Ground and Beaumont Rag, you can probably play Whiskey Before Breakfast. Because it's all really in the same scale, and if you just sit and listen to it for a second, you're like, oh, okay, I know these notes. I mean, it's there. A lot of the stuff is in the same scale, and it's just like the notes are moved around, and
So that next part of Black Mountain Rag, he gets into the cross picking.
yeah. So I'll go.
Beautiful.
So there's some of these in there, and that's like a George Shuffler thing. I learned that from playing, stone wall, steel bars, and love. And that's how I learned that stuff. I mean, um,
That's
and,
strong.
and so it will kind of cross over. I started realizing you could put that stuff in there. So like
Oh yeah.
and just for a quick second, there's that little triplet thing, and then it
And it
goes
almost
back.
becomes natural. You don't even think about it. It just flows.
Right. Yeah, and sometimes I'll do like right there.
Nice.
That's a down up down up. So
That's so clean.
now I'm playing a different tune. Uh,
That that is so good. Would you be up for taking a question on the old Black Mountain Rag?
yeah, I'd love to.
Anybody got any questions on the Black Mountain Rag? We still got to get to Beaumont, but if anybody wants the secrets of Black Mountain Rag, now's the time to ask. Josh Levine, go ahead, buddy. We'll get you unmuted here.
Hey Billy, thanks for being here. Congrats. I had a question. Is that I was listening to the Doc and Merle record, and I was listening to this version of Black Mountain Rag, and the second break, I just heard a lot of stuff that I hear you playing a lot. I know a lot of your style is based off Doc, but I'm wondering if there's like specific recordings or specific stuff that you kind of have been into.
I think the version of Black Mountain Rag that I really learned from is on YouTube. I can't recall exactly what performance it is, but I think Doc's wearing a cool leather vest, and his fretboard looks really like wide and flat on that. I think it was his Gallagher guitar, but I'm really not sure. That's the one that I sort of learned from, I feel like, the most, or that I've kind of listened to the most, just on YouTube.
Cool. Yeah, this one is Merle standing behind him in like a blue leisure suit, and Doc's sitting there. They're behind like some mountains with a guitar on his lap. I don't know. The album's called, well, it looks like it's called Doc and Merle Watson, but I was just curious if there were any like super influential versions or, albums of Doc that you were into.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all of them, but let's see here. I want to maybe just take a second to see if I can find what I got here. This one, The Essential Doc Watson, is
Nice.
a really good one. That's got Tom Dooley, Alberta, Froggy Winnacorton. See, and there was tunes like that too, like Froggy Winnacorton. My dad would play that when I was little, and it's such a fun song, like for a kid.
Great song.
And he would do the sound effects, like the bumblebee walking in and all that stuff. And muskrat, groundhog, the crawdad hole, all those songs were, I just loved them as a kid, and I still love them, but this one for sure, The Essential Doc Watson, I would say Southbound is like so good, like sonically, it's just such an amazing sounding record.
So is your record, man. Well, production beautiful.
Thanks. I know I got a bunch more in here. There's some.
I'm gonna tell my Doc Watson story just real quick while you're looking for it. I got to play with Doc Watson one time. It was an album made about 1994, and I was 13 years old, and they had this little it was bus. It was backstage bus, and I was up there, and I can't remember what we played. I played one song with it. I was so excited. I don't think I took a break. I was just chopping rhythm or whatever, and I got my mandolin case, and I walked off the bus. I was walking back to the hotel, and I was so excited. I was just like, oh my gosh, it's just like I was on cloud nine. I was so happy. I was like, gosh, my mandolin case just feels so light right now. I was like, gosh, my mandolin case really feels light right now, and I was like, I'm gonna stop, and I just like set my mandolin. There was no mandolin in my mandolin case. I was just so excited that I just played with Doc Watson. So I had to go back to the bus, and it was still there, which was good. But it was very exciting. That's my doctor.
That's amazing. Yeah, anything I've ever heard about anyone who met him and stuff, he was just so kind. I never got to meet him, but this one is really good. Doc and Merle on stage. This has got the Browns Ferry Blues on it, and Open Up Them Pearly Gates, and
Deep River Blue.
yeah,
That was my favorite one for sure.
yeah,
Super awesome.
Windy and Warm. He does Hold the Wood Pile Down. There's some good, and Billy and the Low Ground instrumental too. It's just some of the coolest picking.
Super classic.
Hey, Billy, could I ask you a question about your music?
Sure,
Thank you for joining us.
of course, man.
Your Turmoil and Tinfoil, that song, anytime I try to get my music friends hip to your music, I always put that song on the radio for them. I think it's an amazing instrumental. What was the genesis of that? Like, what was do you mind sharing your process of writing that a little bit, and like how you pulled that together?
Well, I used to play in a heavy metal band when I was in high school, and we were always playing. It was always just like, and like the worst sounding stuff. we would always play like stuff in like demented shapes, and it would just try to make it sound like that. Was like the whole diminished scale was a big thing back then for the metal that I was playing. And I, eventually kind of came back to bluegrass, and I realized that's where my heart and soul resides. So I was like, okay. Then it was my electric guitar that started collecting dust, and I sort of quit the band that I was in, and I just started listening to a lot more bluegrass, and it reminded me of my childhood, and I just got super into it again, like just head over heels, with anything acoustic. And so yeah, when I wrote that song, I was trying to like take some of the ideas that I had from the metal band and make it into like a bluegrass song. And then it's just like you don't play that in bluegrass. But so yeah, I just tried to kind of mix, my idea for that was I want to see if I can put some of these awful sounding chords into a bluegrass song.
Thank you.
So the metal the metal helped you with your bluegrass, and to me that's very like a Monroe-esque move. It's like, take the cool thing from here, put it in the salad. Tastes good.
Yeah, exactly. So I grew up listening to Doc and Merle, from the time I was born to the time I was probably 9 or 10. I didn't even know about other music really. I mean, my mom would listen to Pearl Jam and the Beatles and stuff like that, but I literally was pretty much only listening to like whatever my dad was listening to, which was Larry Sparks and stuff like, Doc and Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs and Bill Monroe and stuff, and Jimmy Martin. He really schooled me on that stuff. I mean, I remember specific moments when he would sit me down. He actually called me from across the house one day, and my nickname's Boomer. They used to call me Boomer. So, Boomer, get in here. And I'm like, what? And he, I walk in his room. He's like, sit down. I'm like, am I in trouble? He's like, I'm like 6 years old, and he's like, sit down. Like, you need to hear this. And he pulls out the record Doc and Dog and was like, this is David Grisman. You need to know this. And he should, because I already knew Doc Watson. And he was, he was playing mandolin a little bit, and he was geeking out on mandolin because he just got this F5. So I remember the specific moment when I learned about David Grisman. My dad sat me down and scolded me about it. It was like, you need to know this guy, and
Nice, one of your buddies. That's freaking cool.
Yeah. And then so like later on, when I got a little bit older, maybe the next year or two, he showed me Black Sabbath. And then he showed me, we got into Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin and the Beatles and King Crimson. I remember him showing me King Crimson when I was just a little kid, and Johnny Winter. So I really got into like classic rock for a while. Like when I was in middle school, I had long hair and I wore like round John Lennon glasses and like, peace signs and all this. And I was like some little hippie kid. And so that he got me a little red Stratocaster with a pig nose amp, and I started learning how to go. Like playing those like classic rock stuff. And those were the first solos that I ever actually took. Like I learned how to do like a blues solo on electric guitar. And so then that led to, by the time I was in middle school, I didn't necessarily go around telling everybody that I played bluegrass, because it was just what I did with my dad and his friends. And it's not that I was embarrassed or ashamed. I just didn't think I was going to impress anybody that way. I didn't think any of the girls at my school would care about Blue Moon of Kentucky very much.
Could have had a point there.
But but then like later on, I was in a metal band, and I did that, and I pretty much did that out of necessity because I wanted to play music with people that were my age.
Yeah, feel ya.
Growing up, I always played with older people, like my dad and his friends, and they're like 30 years older than me. and I just wanted to play music with people that were like my age and were into the same stuff that I was into, like skateboarding and video games and stuff. And the only music that was really going on was either jazz band, which I went to that for about half a day before I was like, okay, this ain't for me.
Mhm.
And then it was this heavy metal stuff, which I absolutely hated at first. I mean, they're just, and they're just like playing like, and it's just like, oh, this is terrible, you know? And I started going to some shows, and then I sort of acquired a taste for it. And then I really acquired a taste for it, and I actually liked it. And then I ended up joining this band. So fast forward a couple years, I got that out of my system. Stuff was weird, not to get too personal or anything, but my family was struggling with substance abuse and we were poor. I was a 15-year-old kid that was dropping out of school and trying drugs and drinking alcohol and doing a lot of stupid shit. And my parents didn't care because they were all twacked out. So the real moment when I got back into bluegrass was my mom had this Chevelle, and she'd stay awake for 4 days straight and then she'd sleep for 3. So I used to steal her car and I'd go cruising around on the back roads. And I did that. And I remember one day I was cruising along down on Hayes Road in the country. You know, there's just cornfields on either side. There's no cops or anything out there. And I had a bottle of vodka riding shotgun, and I was just getting drunk, and I started getting reckless trying to see how fast I could get the car to go. And there was a tape hanging out of the tape deck. And I just go, I wonder what mom's been listening to. And I pushed that tape in, and Rank Stranger came on.
Holy Jesus.
And I just sort of slowed down and pulled over, and just the sound of that music, it just changed my life in that moment. I was like, in that moment, I realized that I shouldn't be in a metal band. I should be playing bluegrass with my dad and spending time with him and trying to, you know, to do that and trying to get back into the bluegrass thing. So instantly I went and borrowed, I didn't even own an acoustic guitar at the time. I borrowed this really shitty like Esteban guitar from my friend. And I went back over to my dad's house and I started trying to learn how to play Salt Creek. And I was like, so how are you doing that, you know? And, you know, we would play it and my dad would. And I could play the rhythm. And then I'm like, okay, let me try a solo. And I would just go. And it's just like trying to play those like blues solos. And I realized it just doesn't work. I was just trying to play. I didn't understand what he was doing and why it sounded so cool. And what he was doing and why it sounded so cool is he was just playing the melody. And again, just like that Beaumont Rag, when I was littler, I realized that he was playing the melody and that was so cool. Now, years later, I'm realizing that again. It's like, well, he's not just playing licks. He's playing and you know, he's not just playing.
It's all the song. It's all that tune.
Yeah, it's like you can hum it, you can sing it, and that's when I started realizing that, and I started getting into Doc Watson again. And I remember one night I was just up all night trying to learn this song called "Nothing to It." And that's the first one that I really got the hang of. And then I started, you know, I kept going back over to my dad's house and let's pick Salt Creek, let's play Beaumont Rag and stuff. I think I'm starting to get the hang of it. And again, not to be too personal or whatever, but we would get high and play all night. And I'd have like I'd have like my friends over there like partying and stuff. And I wouldn't even hang out with them. I'd just be sitting there with my dad playing all night long. And
this is a traditional motif.
Yeah, and I started playing a little bit of mandolin as well, and I learned like bluegrass stomp and soldier's joy, and then it just took off. I just started getting better and better. And I just practiced all the time. And because it was fun, man. It was, it is fun. It's
I would
just,
just like to personally thank your guardian angels for keeping you safe, because that's mighty powerful, and sounds like you were in some dangerous situations, and you had the protection. So we're just so glad that you're here with us, and teaching us all these good things, man.
yeah,
It's just super cool connection, with you and your dad, and the real stuff. And I think that, to me, you've got a lot of wonderful propensity as a healer, as a social or cultural healer. That's like, putting a salve on the wound of the non-melody. So you're bringing people that the pendulum swings way out here, and then here comes Billy. He's gonna bring it back for us. And that's great. It's so great. So thank you for your
you
commitment
know,
to the melody.
I, uh, if I'm playing a tune like Beaumont Rag, or, like a fiddle tune, then yeah, but some traditionalists, or some of the, more kind of bluegrass crowd, they hate me because I play like psychedelic stuff, and I go off on these
Because you're
kind
doing
of,
original things like Bill Monroe.
yeah, and, and then I just like sometimes
I feel you.
I don't like read that
Complicated.
stuff or whatever, but I would just like I wish I could just sit down and pick with this guy, because like
Exactly right.
it's not like all I do. I just do a lot of different stuff. All that Black Sabbath and Hendrix and all that stuff, the Beatles, all that stuff, like in the metal, the Grateful Dead, all that stuff kind of stuck with me too. And I figure my brain is just some kind of musical goulash, and why try to put it inside of a box? Um,
Exactly. You might give yourself cancer or something if you try to like squish yourself, too hard that way. Not to be weird like that, but
yeah,
to
yeah.
be
So
to be give yourself like complexes, like, oh, I can't play that lick. Thing, I can't do this. I can't do that. And where am I? Just to stop.
yeah, yeah. Where it's just like I'm just just doing my thing and everything, but at the root of it all is Doc Watson.
Would you give us a little Beaumont rag for us to listen to? We'd love to
Sure.
hear that.
Yeah. So I'll try to play it like my dad did. He used to play that, which I really like. But
Yeah. That was so fantastic, so clean, so driving, so tasteful. And then I love the tacit variation. It's like, what's the raddest thing that you could do? Just stop playing. It's like you could think about every note possible combination, and then it wouldn't be as rad as just stop playing.
yeah.
That's when I sound my best, is when I stop.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you just got to do that. That little part, when I remember when I was little, uh, my dad and I would, we'd be playing the song and we'd do it a couple times through, and he would give me this sort of secret look and give me like a little wink and be like, okay, this next time that means we're gonna stop when I got the wink,
Oh, it's
and,
so fun.
and yeah, and everybody would be like, how did they know when to stop? Or whatever. But yeah, that tune too, like when I'm playing it, I'm thinking. And then the B part, that's totally that George Shuffler thing again. It's so So that's down, down, up, and then here I'm going. So yeah, I'm trying to just like after I go down, down, as soon as I go up, I'm kind of going right back to that A string to restart the pattern. And it's cool because you just have to change your left hand. Your right hand's doing the same thing, you know. And then I mean, it's just the same thing. You know, and I use that in so many tunes when I'm playing. I'll show you one lick that I learned when I was learning that "Nothing to It" song, and that is
Great one. Please, yeah.
that is so I don't know what frets I'm on. I have to count. Well, I guess this is the 10th fret. 10 to 7 on the first string, and then open. So then I go down to the 7th fret.
Great lick.
I'm just hitting that open first string so many times. But yeah, I use that a lot, like a you know.
Kind of one of those licks that speeds up good. You can play it fast,
Yeah, absolutely.
especially if you're playing strings.
Yeah, if you played it after you play it a few times, then you get sort of the pattern going. And I think that's a big part of it too, is just just practicing, starting out slow. If it's too hard for you to do, slow it down and really figure out what it is that's going on, and then work your speed up. Because it's easy to just kind of blow over it and try to just play it, and because you want to so bad. But
Right.
speaking of clarity about like how clean Doc was and stuff. I mean, he talked about that. Just starting slow and practicing, and really figuring out what it is that you're doing, and it's almost like a muscle memory kind of. You get a pattern in your head, and then if after you do it enough, then you can start to speed it up, and it gets easier and easier. I mean, it's almost just like practicing a scale. If you do that like a bunch of times, you're going to be able to do it faster.
Yeah, programming that muscle memory in there.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Just getting it in your head and in your fingers, and getting it to where you don't need to think about it, to where it's like
an instinct.
Habit.
Yeah. This is super inspiring. Billy, we'd love it if you wanted to stick around a little bit longer and give some feedback to the students. Would you be up for that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, let's take a little round here.